Hi there, my name is Tom Dempsey. Welcome to the My Favorite Things program here at TrueFire. Really glad to be a part of this. I'm filming this segment here from my home in Midtown Manhattan, so I'll already apologize in advance for any sort of extraneous sounds of horns honking, sirens blaring, jackhammers. It's just part of the vibe of living in Midtown Manhattan, the joy of it all. So when TrueFire asked me to do one of these My Favorite Things segments, there's so many things that are my favorite things. It's hard to pick one, but I think at the end of the day, the most important, or the thing that is my most favorite thing is to play. And one of the ways that I practice just playing is doing different exercises using chromatic ideas. So a lot of times when we take a look at a progression, say a 2-5-1 progression, we're thinking about what am I going to play on that 2 chord, what am I going to play on that 5 chord, and what am I going to play on that 1 chord. Well, ultimately, the way that I look at a 2-5-1 is that there's the movement from tension, which is the D minor 7, the G7, to resolution. And how do you get to that point so that you're definitive in your statement on those changes? Well, there's obviously a lot of different ways that you can do it. But one of the things I like to experiment with is using chromatic ideas to be able to express that tension and then be able to take that and resolve it into some sort of resolution that makes sense, that gives punctuation to the idea. Because any of the tension that you bring in any of your lines is only going to be as strong as the resolution. So for example, if you take just a regular C chromatic scale, I'm here in the 5th position, and just play that chromatic scale, there are a whole bunch of different chromatic ideas that lie there. And that has a certain sound. That's based on all the half steps within one octave. But then if you take, that obviously our ear kind of recognizes as a major sound or a major scale. In knowing those two different sounds, you can be able to start to improvise over a 2-5-1 and start to come up with some very interesting kinds of ideas. But I think there should be a portion of your practice that's designated to experimentation, seeing what you can come up with on your own, not necessarily learning this lick and putting it over those changes, although that study is good and important. I think it's important for your creative life and your creative body to just experiment playing as a kid would play. So one of the things that I'll do a lot of times is I'll just play with a progression. I've got a 2-5-1 progression kind of queued up here. That's D minor 7 to G7 to C major, 2-5-1 in the key of C major. And the D minor 7 and the G7 sort of represent the tension. That's where I'll start to use chromatic ideas. And then obviously the movement into the 1 chord is the resolution. So I'm going to play over this just a little bit. I want you to take a listen to how I'm just taking ideas out of the chromatic scale and then eventually resolving them into major as I play over this 2-5-1. You can hear the chromatic movement. I mean, I'm doing this all kind of on purpose right now. In an actual improvisational experience, I'll you know, use elements of this. But you can see how if I go, that resolves right into my root of C major, okay? And all I was doing is taking a sequence going down, and then eventually resolving right into C major. I could take another one like, and that resolves right into C major as well. So working with chromatics in this way can be kind of a helpful way to come up with some different sounding ideas, and it gets you, you know, thinking a little bit differently and using your ear, which is really ultimately the place you want to be when you get ready to improvise. Let me do a little bit more of this so you can kind of hear it in some different context. Okay, so you can hear how that starts to bring out some other kinds of interesting ideas. Now we're just doing it over a 2-5-1. You can really try this with any progression. So I'm going to take a blues right now. This is a B-flat blues, and do basically the same sort of concept with using chromaticism. Now remember, the important thing when you use this is to really try and make sure that the chromaticism eventually resolves. It has to resolve into some sort of chord tone. And that's how you're going to be able to get that definition. But the nature of the chromatic line itself gives it a certain kind of movement that's really interesting. So here it is over a B-flat blues. So you can hear now, you might be hearing some of that and saying like, wow, that just sounds like a blues lick. Like well, yeah, because that's kind of what our ear has come to know the sound of the blues. You know, it's got that chromaticism in that. That chromaticism is what, from the flat 5 up to the natural 5th. All that kind of sound is part of the sound of the blues. But if you take all all of a sudden you've got a more interesting line that's with that chromatic movement kind of brings in a little bit more tension to your line, but it also gives your line a little bit more kind of forward motion than just going out of the blues scale. Now I've got and you're into now the 4 chord. So what I would suggest is that you try to experiment with this. Take it with something that you're familiar with, maybe just 1 chord, maybe it's a 2-5-1 progression, maybe it's a blues, whatever it is. But try to experiment with just using chromaticism as a way to connect to a resolution. So I hope that you get something out of this. If you have any questions about it, feel free to email me, tom@tomdempseymusic.com. And look forward to seeing you on the bandstand sometime. Take care.